Boy, did the Cardinals ever need that one. Bouncing back after six straight losses for an emphatic win over the Brewers on Saturday in a game that saw some tensions rise between rivals. We'll talk about it coming up on b-schaeff Daily. What's going on, everyone, and welcome in to this edition of b-schaeff Daily. Brenden Schaeffer with you. It is Saturday, June 14th, 2025. Cardinals are off the schneid. They get a big 8-5 win over the Milwaukee Brewers on Saturday afternoon at AmFam Field. Is that what they're calling it now? American Family? I don't care. It'll always be Miller Park to me. Welcome into the show on a day that the Cardinals got the result they were looking for, and maybe a spark into their season a little bit as well, as some back and forth action between the Cardinals and Brewers. Willson Contreras in the middle of it, which is a surprise to nobody. The heart and soul of the Cardinals. I think in this case, the Brewers were upset with something that Willson maybe did first as they perceived it. But from there, I feel like things definitely escalated. Now, they didn't escalate to the point of any benches clearing, but certainly some intrigue and some fireworks going on between the Cardinals and Brewers. So we'll recap exactly what we think went down and whether we could see more intrigue on Sunday, because I will make note, Miles Mikolas is the scheduled starter for the Cardinals on Sunday. And if you can recall some instances in recent years, he is not afraid to do what he thinks needs to be done. I'll say that and leave it at that. We'll talk about all of it coming up on b-schaeff Daily. Make sure you are subscribed to this YouTube channel for daily Cardinals content, as well as b-schaeff Daily over on Spotify. You can search the name of the podcast, b-schaeff Daily, for everyday Cardinals coverage, which is going to happen even this week as I'm in Lake of the Ozarks. We're still doing our podcast. Don't have all my equipment with me, so if the audio sounds different this week, do apologize, but I wasn't going to miss out talking about, even on vacation, a game like this one as the Cardinals beat the Brewers 8-5. I think we have to start with the biggest bit of news, which is the kerfuffle involving Willson Contreras and the Brewers. We'll start things off in the third inning where there is an incident at first base. Willson Contreras, the first baseman, records the putout, catches the ball after a grounder by Caleb Durbin. Caleb Durbin was still a couple good steps away from the base when Contreras caught it, but he's running through the bag, as you often see happen, and Contreras does sort of, his body kind of ends up in the baseline a little bit more than I think Caleb Durbin was expecting, and he ran into a Mack truck. Caleb Durbin absolutely got the worst of this interaction because Contreras was hardly flinched as a result. He was very confused, but I think Contreras, in fairness, kind of lost a little bit of himself in space there, and it was one of those deals where did Durbin have to be hard charging through the bag as hard as he was, knowing he was well out by 2 or 3 steps? Yeah, maybe not, but that's just, a style of play that a lot of guys use. We commend players for doing that. Did Contreras have to be in the baseline? No. Was he just kind of nonchalant about it? Yes. I think in a perfect world, this happens. Contreras, can say, hey, man, nothing meant by that. Maybe didn't realize you were as close to the bag as you were, whatever. It's just like not the type of play you normally see. Contreras, obviously newer to first base, and so does that maybe play a part in it, where it's just how many times has he had a play like that happen? Probably not many compared to first basemen who have been doing this role for years and years, right? So could the relative lack of experience at the position maybe have something to do with it, where, Contreras might have a better sense of awareness for, okay, just, don't be in that spot. I don't know. I think it's just one of those plays that I can understand where the Brewers would feel a certain way about it, but I think it could have probably been resolved there potentially. Contreras certainly looked confused. I don't believe for a second that he was trying to. There was clearly no reason that he would be intentionally trying to injure Caleb Durbin, a young player for the Milwaukee Brewers, and it was mentioned postgame. We will get into the postgame comments, courtesy of some of the reporters there in Milwaukee, that Willson Contreras had to say, because they are spicy. This guy was fired up after the game, and it makes you wonder what we're going to see on Sunday. But I think clearly there's nothing intentional there in that third inning incident. But Rhys Hoskins was apparently the primary Brewer that was upset about what he saw there with Durbin. Durbin kind of pops up. I can't see from the video as to whether there are really any words between Contreras. He's more gesturing to the dugout for the Brewers, and I don't know if that was a back and forth with Rhys Hoskins or what the case was there, but that's what kind of started everything off. And there was also some kind of strike zone stuff going on today with Oliver Marmol. Really felt like there could be an ejection in this game. I talked with Ethan Hannaford on the STL Sports Central morning show or Cardinals show, Card Central 365, had that conversation on Saturday morning where we said, yeah, we could see an ejection potentially just as a way for Ollie Marmol to try and maybe spark his Cardinals team. That's not the way that this game ended up going, but the spark was well the way that the offense performed, and certainly with the interaction between Willson Contreras and the rest of the Brewers. So there was a hit batsman. I believe Rhys Hoskins was plunked by the Cardinals shortly after this interaction. Again, no warnings, I think, were even issued at this point in the proceedings. I could be mistaken about that. But at any rate, when you later have Willson Contreras hit by a pitch, and he was obviously the one that the Brewers had some issue with, you just thought things were going to escalate from there in honestly a bigger way than they did. That was the point at which the benches were warned, seeing that according to John Denton on Twitter. The reaction by Willson Contreras is absolutely gold. At first, he seems like he wants to, just kind of take his base. This is the fifth inning at this point, so we've still got a lot of baseball yet to be played when this is taking place. But Contreras, after just like one false step toward first, he goes, you know what? Actually, I'm going to go all the way toward the third base dugout, pick up that baseball for Jose Quintana, put it in his mitt for him, give him a pat on the back, and head to first base. Willson Contreras is an absolute gem. I mean, I thought he handled that so well. It's basically like, I know you did it on purpose. I know that maybe you felt like you kind of had to do it, but my beef is not with you, Quintana. And Q kind of gives him a glove pat on the way through as well. I just thought that was so fascinating. And that is just so Willson Contreras. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of that moment. But I just got such a kick out of that. I mean, he was a good 20 to 25 feet down the line toward the third base bag to pick up the baseball. And Quintana didn't need it. I mean, they're going to throw out the baseball and get a new one anyway the moment it touches the ground. That's just gold. That's just Willson being Willson. And I continue to say the heart and soul of this Cardinals team, and I really feel like that was the case. By the way, at the time, the Cardinals were leading 4-1 in this game, and it ends up getting better from there. In that very same inning, you love to see this when you're on a 6-game losing streak. It's a 4-1 game. There's nobody on base in the fifth inning yet when Willson is hit by Jose Quintana. But these runs ended up counting a little bit. As you watch this game late, it could have gotten dicier than it even did for the Cardinal bullpen. Phil Maton was working around traffic. This could have gotten a lot spicier than it did, but the run scoring in the fifth inning, thanks to Nolan Gorman. I mean, a tank, an absolute blast into right center off of Quintana, up over 100 pitches, left on left home run for Gorman. That was a huge swing and a huge moment for the Cardinals in this game as they win it 8-5. That made it 7-1 after it had been 4-1. Second longest home run of the season for the Cardinals, according to John Denton, the 433-foot blast by Nolan Gorman. You love to see that left-on-left power. I think Nolan Gorman's just got to play for right now, gang. I know that earlier in the season, I'll admit, I was looking at Nolan Gorman thinking we might be nearing the end. And not in terms of the next couple of weeks, it was going to be over and the Cardinals were going to trade him or something. But I just started to get the feeling, I don't even know if this guy's got a shot to be on the 2026 Cardinal roster, the way things were trending. I'm not saying I'm going to guarantee that he'll be there now, but I certainly think he's got a better chance. And the Cardinals with that runway, they might be inclined to give him more of that with the way that he is swinging the bat. And Gorman, this is something that Ollie Marmol talked about last week. I was in the office for one of the pregame media sessions with the writers, and there were conversations happening about Nolan Gorman basically had to kind of break down the swing, was obviously a lot of swing and miss, not really offsetting that swing and miss with the power that you want to see. So what do? They simplify. Hey, here's how you're going to start making contact again. And he started to make contact slowly but surely. And then from there, you build upon that and say, okay, how do we get from point A to point B, which is you found the contact swing. Now do it in a powerful way. And slowly but surely, I think they've been able to rebuild him into a place where he's seeing the ball pretty well right now and given the Cardinals a real look with some of the numbers that he has put together recently. A really nice day today, 1 for 3 with that home run, but he also walked twice. So that's the element that I think you're missing with Nolan Gorman. You'll take the strikeouts. There's going to be strikeouts. But if you're counteracting that with power and with plate discipline, that can then lead to the power because if you're not swinging at everything, the pitches that are hittable or drivable are going to be the ones that, you're more likely to connect on because you're still in the batter's box instead of walking back to the dugout after strike 3. There will still be strikeouts. But if you are able to do what Nolan Gorman's doing right now, minimizing some of that and adding some walks, sprinkling them in over his past 5 games, he's got 4 walks now. That's a number you can live with. 5 strikeouts in 5 games too. Hey, that's a number you can live with as well if you're also getting some of the power swings, which the Cardinals are 2 homers in those 5 games too. So for Nolan Gorman, you play him and you play him every day. How's that going to work? Well, it's going to get a little bit more complicated if Brendan Donovan returns here soon. He was not in the lineup on Saturday. Neither was Lars Nootbaar. We talked about there would be a change according to the reporting from Derek Gould on Friday night, that Nootbaar would not be the leadoff man for Saturday, and he might not even be in the lineup for Sunday. It could be a couple of days that they give him out of the starting lineup. Now, I believe he did come into the game late as a defensive replacement, but that could just kind of be to continue to have him, keep his legs, keep his involvement, but not have to worry about batting. I thought that was interesting to see that, and it was a case where Ryan Helsley was coming in for the 9th inning. He did end up giving a home run up, but it was good outing, I thought, for Helsley otherwise to be able to continue to work through some of the things that he's working through and getting Nootbaar in there in left field for Burleson, in theory, better defensively, better range, and just a way to kind of keep Newt involved without having him in the batter's box right now as he kind of tries to have that mental reset from that perspective. I said for Helsley, it was a good outing. I think it was a constructive outing is what I mean there. The fastball is still not quite where you want it. He gives up a home run to Willson Contreras on a fastball and another hit on a fastball in that inning, but he had a couple of strikeouts. The slider still looks tremendous. It was nice that they put him into that spot, even though a home run by Willson Contreras made it 8-4 instead of 7-4. Technically not a save situation, but valuable to get Helsley that opportunity, I thought, to try to get him back to square one and back to being who he is as quickly as they can. I thought that was a nice call by Ollie Marmol to do it that way. Does he look perfect? Absolutely not. The fastball is still a concern, but they were able to do it in a lower leverage situation because you had a 4-run lead, and I thought that made a lot of sense for the goal, which is to get Helsley back on track. So those are kind of some of my thoughts there as it pertains to the Cardinal closer. As it pertains to some of the other injuries going on, as we're still talking about this Nolan Gorman conversation, I would put him in the lineup. Jordan Walker, though, was returned to the lineup on Saturday. And so that changes things a little bit in terms of once Donovan gets back and once Nootbaar is back as a genuine regular in the lineup, which I do think is going to happen at some point. It's not like they're just going to give up on the guy, but they're going to have to ease him back in for sure. Once all that happens, what becomes of Nolan Gorman will be a very interesting conversation because Alec Burleson is continuing to earn more opportunities. In the field, you don't maybe love putting him in left. You don't love putting him in right, but they're going to be willing to do it because he's been one of the more consistent bats in this lineup. 2 for 5 today with an RBI, and he was in the number 3 spot in the order. So I think they'll continue to be, considerate of him as one of the top left-handed bats and threats in this lineup. You get Donovan back in there, and I think you lengthen that lineup even a little bit more by being able to stagger Burleson with Donovan and then maybe even Gorman before you get to Nootbaar. Does Nootbaar bat 7th or 8th when they try to get him back in there? It'll be interesting to see the way that Ollie Marmol looks to rebuild the confidence of Lars Nootbaar when the time comes. But for now, man, Gorman's got to be in there. I just think he's done too many things that represent the upside that he brings to the table in recent days that you don't want to gloss over that and ignore it. 7 hits for Nolan Gorman over his past 7 games, a couple of home runs mixed in there as well. And the fact that he's walked 4 times over the past 5 games is at least a sign that things are turning in a better direction for him. And in fact, if you were to expand it out to his last 10 games, there was another game early June against the Royals where Gorman had a really nice day at the yard, 2 for 4, hit the home run, had a walk as well. So he's been getting on base more. He's been providing some of that power. Gorman's got to play, as far as I'm concerned. But let's continue to get back into this conversation as it pertains to Willson Contreras. So we told you about the incident with Jose Quintana giving him the ball back. I thought that was well handled by him. But then later in the game, a home run by Contreras makes it 8-5, or excuse me, 8-4, and it was an opposite field shot. Really nice swing, kind of a no doubter to be hit to that part of the yard and still get out as easily as it did. Pretty impressive swing by Contreras. But then as he's rounding first base, and it's from the screenshot of this thumbnail here for this YouTube video, he is staring down that Brewers dugout for a while. If you haven't seen the video, it is worth it. That's Willson Contreras. If you're going to have an incident with him, you better be ready to be in it for the long haul because he rises to the occasion in these moments. And look, I'm not necessarily saying the Brewers did anything wrong at first. Was Contreras kind of in the baseline a little bit with Caleb Durbin? Yes. Was it intentional? No. Was there maybe a perception by the Brewers that, there was some foul play involved where there wasn't, and they took it a little bit too much to heart? Absolutely. I think that's the case. But you know what? I think if the shoe was on the other foot, that's just a case of kind of having your guys back. And so I obviously don't know what was said or not said from Rhys Hoskins, but I think that's just all baseball stuff. This is the kind of, intrigue that I find compelling, the kind of back and forth between teams where no matter what side you're on, you can kind of see maybe the point of one side or the other, but you know that for the guys in that clubhouse and in that dugout, they're going to have their guys back. So nothing necessarily shocks me about that. But Willson Contreras, for me, is 100% in the right with the way that he has approached it, because you can't tell me that this is not firing up the St. Louis Cardinals. And at the end of the day, that is really all that matters. It's a bottom line league, and bottom line, I think this is benefiting the St. Louis Cardinals, that they've got a little bit of something to be fired up about. How it started, I don't know. Did the Cardinals have to hit Rhys Hoskins? I don't know. I imagine they got in the dugout and Contreras said, I don't know, Rhys Hoskins was mouthing off. I don't know what's going on. And so they probably said, all right, keep that in mind when he comes up to bat. That's just baseball. That's old school baseball. And I am not one of those that's ever going to say, oh, I can't believe anybody would throw at somebody with a projectile. Nope, don't care. Let's go. Don't hit him in the head. Don't get him up top. But let's play some old school baseball. I have no problem with that. As a fan, as someone in the media, lets everybody understand. Are there unwritten rules? Yeah, maybe. Lets everybody take care of theirs and, do it responsibly. I got no problem with that. That's me personally. You may disagree. But I love the fire from Willson Contreras. That's the bottom line to me. When I say this is a bottom line situation, that's what I'm talking about. And, of course, after the game in the clubhouse, the visitor clubhouse, there were some things said. Willson Contreras was interviewed by the media, and I'm reading this from the Twitter timeline of Jeff Jones, reporter for the Belleville News-Democrat. This is pretty good. Quote, one of their players, he liked to talk from far away, but then when he got in my face, he didn't say shit. That's Willson Contreras postgame. It gets deeper than that. There's going to be some words that I will decide not to say just for the sake of the podcast, but understand that you can see them on Jeff Jones' Twitter, and I'll describe them for you. I won't make more of a big deal than it is, but I think this is totally Willson. Quote, I was looking for more than that. He seems to be tougher. He's an effing, and then the next word he uses is slang term, but think like a kitty cat. He's an effing kitty cat. You get the understanding. I'm not going to name no names. He knows who he is. End quote. That's from Willson Contreras per Jeff Jones of the Belleville News-Democrat. Jeff continuing later, when Willson was asked about Hoskins by name, Contreras said, quote, he didn't say nothing to me. I was expecting for him to say something, but he was looking away already. Look at my face. Just say it to my face, whatever you say from the dugout. And he was looking away. Just get off the base. I was like, man, push me. He didn't, so it was good. Because this interaction, obviously, would have taken place a little bit later on. Willson Contreras on the base paths. Rhys Hoskins is there, available to be interacted with from up close. as the first baseman for the Brewers, he didn't want to say anything at that point, is the gist I'm getting from Willson Contreras' quotes post game. I think that is more than fair. And again, Willson was trying to avoid maybe naming names, but then was asked specifically later about Hoskins and gave the answers that he gave. I think we can connect the two dots and know that, Hoskins is who he's talking about in the first quote, and then it's similar in the other quotes as well. And here's the thing. Willson Contreras, again, the Brewers thought that there was a slight against their player Caleb Durbin, which, by the way, there is a quote here that Jeff reported regarding Durbin. He said, but that's my point. Like, why would I hurt a guy that just started his career and he's super young? Like, it doesn't make sense to me. Like, as Willson is seeing this, are the Brewers implying, is Rhys Hoskins implying that I did this on purpose? Having that interaction at the first base bag with Caleb Durbin? No, I didn't do it on purpose. Now, if Rhys Hoskins feels a certain way about it from far away, and Willson Contreras wants to get some clarity later on when he has a little bit of a closer chance to interact with him near first base, different conversation, you might be able to clear the air there. Now, tensions are high. I'm not going to sit here and say, well, Willson was probably looking to apologize. I don't know that he was. Not in the moment. But like I said, I don't believe he did anything intentionally as it comes to the Caleb Durbin incident. But I think it's pretty fair to say, look, if you're going to talk about it from the dugout, and now there's an opportunity later on the field, all right, let's hash it out here. I was expecting for him to say something, but he was looking away already. Look at my face, just say it to my face, whatever you say from the dugout. And he was looking away. So, yeah, I mean, it's interesting stuff for sure. Maybe other people don't think it's as interesting as I do, but these crop up a handful of times per year, and I always get a kick out of them because I think this is the human competitor side of the game, and it's a very real aspect of the game. And I like to think that even if there was a realm in which Contreras would go, you know what, I didn't mean to do that to the guy, I could say, I apologize for that. That's my bad, whatever it would have been. But if Hoskins is, shouting for the dugout, but then doesn't want to hash it out on the field, I think that's where Willson Contreras is coming from. Let me know what you think of this, Cardinals fans. My point with all of it is I think it's good for the Cardinals. A, because they won the game today, needed to have a win. I heard I was getting chirped on the STL Sports Central postgame show because I did say I didn't think they were going to win today. I just didn't see the pitching matchup lining up in their favor because I thought Jose Quintana was going to shove, as he just is that type of lefty that I think can really stymie the Cardinals. But to the Cardinals' credit, they scored in the first inning, 3 runs in the fourth, 3 more in the fifth, and they ended up having a heck of a day against Quintana, who gave up 7 of the 8 runs the Cardinals scored. 5 of them were earned. Andre Pallante, shame about his outing because he started off really, really hot. He had 5 strikeouts through 2 scoreless innings in this game, but he was not able to get through the 5th inning. I thought in the 5th inning he was being squeezed a little bit. There was a check swing that I thought shouldn't have even mattered whether it was a check swing because it was in the zone. And then ball 4, I thought also was in the zone on the same at bat, ended up being a walk. And then the Brewers went on a little bit of a hit parade, and it really did impact the flow of that inning, in my opinion. But, Pallante would probably tell you he needed to have the finishing stuff in that frame and wasn't able to do so. But 7 strikeouts, 4 1/3 innings, 3 earned runs. Not a glowing box score by any means, but I thought the stuff was good from Pallante. And the fact that he's starting to get some swing and miss, I'm not ready to give up on Andre Pallante yet. I don't think the Cardinals are going to be either. But I understand that people are going to probably be in these comments talking about Michael McGreevy, more than fair. We'd love to see him too. But ultimately, I said if the Cardinals were going to win some games in this series, it was going to be because the offense was going to have to do some things that I did not expect them to do. And frankly, that's exactly what we got on Saturday. It's a credit to this lineup that they were able to bounce back the way that they did. Good to see Jordan Walker getting into the mix right away with a base hit and a walk in this game. I mentioned Gorman being on base 3 times. Arenado was on base a couple of times and scored 2 runs. Herrera, Mason Wynn getting on base. I mean, up and down the lineup, Victor Scott had a couple of RBIs and a hit in this game. Everybody who started this game for the Cardinals had 1 hit, and Burleson had 2. It's the only multi-hit game, but everybody else had at least 1, had exactly 1. And it was a 10-hit day for the Cardinals. They walked 5 times. They needed a game like this. The heroes, Contreras homers. He's obviously in the middle of all of the extracurriculars. Gorman with a big 3-run homer. That was huge. But otherwise, it was a game where offensively everybody contributed. And to kind of get things back on the right path, I think the Cardinals really needed something like that. Let me know in the comments below what you thought about this one and whether you think the Cardinals can get it done on Sunday and whether Miles Michaelis might have more to say towards some of the Brewers about the way that this thing went down, and maybe it's not over. We'll see if it is. You would think Willson Contreras, he's a Brewer, he might be able to tell Milwaukee's clubhouse, like, hey, don't mess with my brother. It's not going to end well because this dude thrives on these types of situations. I've never seen it. It's not like clutch per se, but it's like if there's going to be some mess that gets talked about, Willson Contreras is going to potentially be in the middle of it, and he's going to perform at a better level because of it. You can call that clutch. I don't know if that's even the right description for it, but it's impressive, nevertheless. That's going to do it, though, for this edition of the show because I am on vacation. We'll get to some Down on the Farms, hopefully tomorrow's episode, but I am going to kind of skip out of here on that today. Let me know in the comments, though, what's the Down on the Farm that we should have been talking about today, and we'll try to get to it on Sunday. Appreciate you guys for sticking with me, for always listening, and being right here every day. But that's going to do it for this edition of the show. Thank you guys so much, and we'll talk to you next time on B-Schaeff Daily. Peace.